That'd be great. Thank you. I didn't know where that pause button. Oh, there it is over there. Okay, so, well, welcome everyone. My name is Dr. Jim Lani with Intellectus Statistics. We have a pretty good crowd today. So welcome everyone. Also know that this is being recorded. You can listen to it later. You can share it with friends or faculty or other colleagues. And I'm going to keep this really simple, easy to do. So let's just take a quick look at the poll. So about a quarter of you are working on your topic selection. Great. And then the other 60% are either in methodology or results. So I have one other, not quite sure what to do with that. Maybe you're a little mixture in there. So, but let's just talk about, just make sure I'm sharing my screen, which I'm sure I am. Hunky-dory. So let's talk about, if you could leave that poll up, that'd be great. So I can't address what topic you're going to be researching, but what I can say that's relevant to this webinar is that the way that you phrase the research questions really matter. So, you know, whatever topic you have to make sure that those research questions, typically 3, are in statistical language, and I'll talk about what that means in a second. But so topic selection is important. Methodology, we'll get into it. So you need to know that there are assumptions with lots of these tests, and we'll talk about what an assumption is, and you know, why do you have to look at these things. And then about 20% of you are working on your results. So this is going to be directly relevant to you. You other guys and gals are really just kind of, as my mother used to say, don't let any grass grow underneath your feet. So you're just being very proactive, which is terrific. So, okay. So this is a whopping 2-slide presentation. So simplify quantitative results. And really, it's kind of a 5-step process. There's more nuances to this thing, but basically, we need to get to a data plan, okay? We need to know what statistics we're going to conduct, okay? The data plan is informed by how you phrase your research questions and the levels of measurement of your variables. And we'll talk about, I'll go to the decision tree and show you, okay, based on this question and based on these kinds of variables, here is the correct analysis. Great. So we need to know what to do. We also need to have data put in, right? So we have to upload data or enter data. So we'll talk about getting data in. Then we'll talk about managing data, because rarely data comes in where you can just go do analyses, okay? So you typically have to manage data. What does that mean? Well, typically, managing data is creating composite scores, I would say, is the majority of cases. There's other things like transforming data and stuff like that, but for the run-of-the-mill analyses, we're just talking about creating composite scores, and we'll do that. Then I'll show you how we actually conduct those analyses. So what are the step-by-step processes to go from, here's my data, here's my analysis that I'm going to do. How do I actually now execute that? And then how do we finish that by generating that results draft? So that's it. It's going to be these 5 steps. There's a lot of other things. I'm sure Melissa or Sierra will put our email in the chat, our phone number in the chat. Yes, we do take appointments right here. And no, you will not get James Lani, but you will get somebody smarter to help navigate your data plans or developing your topic or your results. Okay, so with that being said, let's get to it. So, okay. So I'm using for this webinar, Intellectus Statistics. This is our proprietary statistics software. It's very user-friendly. If you want to just go and use it, you could do that. You can go to intellectustatistics.com. Say you're a student, you are a student, excuse me, just okay. So and then for $59 a month, you can use it. So no, you have some cheap options. You also have consulting options, one-on-one or group consulting. But okay. So Intellectus Statistics, it's web-based, by the way. You don't have to download stuff, you don't have to update stuff and so forth. Okay, so let's spend a few minutes on the decision tree, because the decision tree is going to tell us, it's going to combine those things I just mentioned earlier, like our research question. What is the phraseology of it? Okay, are we talking about differences or prediction? What are we doing there? And then what's the level of measurement? And together, that's going to get us over here to the right-hand column, which is, this is the actual analysis we're going to conduct. So let's just go through it. So summarizing data, we're just doing descriptives, right? So what does that mean? Well, that means, hey, I'm just looking for means and standard deviations. I'm just looking for the range of scores from the lowest to the highest. I'm looking for the frequency or percentage of males or females or people that have the diagnosis or don't, or whatever, things of this sort. So summarizing data is like the most basic kind of analyses. Now, it's basic, but I also say for everything that you do, and I mean everything that you do, any analysis you do, run descriptives first, okay? It took me, probably 10 years to learn that lesson. Why would I want to run descriptives if I'm looking for differences or prediction? Well, when you run descriptives and you put your eyeballs on that output, what you're going to notice is the sample size. I thought I had 25 people. I only see 23 people. My score goes from 1 to 7. I have a 77 in there. So you're going to be able to find errors in inputting data or the way that it was uploaded or something of that sort. So it's really mission critical that you run descriptives first. If you do not run descriptives first, what will happen inevitably is you will go through and you'll run your t-test and you'll run your chi-square and you'll have your results and everything will be great. And you'll download it and then you'll start editing it and you'll say, hey, wait a second, there's no 77 on my 1 to 7 scale. And you have to do everything all over again. Now, nobody wants to do things all over again, do they? If anybody wants to do that, you raise your hand. I'll bring you in. All right. So do yourself a favor, run descriptive statistics. They're simple, they're easy to do, but look at what's going on, particularly the range, particularly the sample size and things of that sort. Okay, so moving on past the descriptives. So most things are happening, let me see if I can get a little bit. Most things are happening in these 4 ways. This is not completely comprehensive, but for a great majority of research questions, these are the analyses we're going to be conducting. So there's basically there are differences, basically there's prediction, and basically there's relationships. All right, differences over time or differences by groups, but differences are differences, and you'll see we're all kind of in ANOVA land here, or t-test land. So let's just talk about differences for a second. So differences are, well, I want to look at group differences, and we need to know a few things here. So we need to know what an independent variable and dependent variable is at a bare minimum. Basically, your dependent variable is your outcome variable, or the things that you want to see if there's differences in. Your independent variable is typically not, I'll say, independent of the participants. What's your gender? You're in group A or B. You didn't pick group A or B. We just put you in that. So independent variables are typically participant characteristics or the variables selected by the researcher. Okay. Outcome variables are the dependent variables, briefly. Okay. Levels of measurement. Let's talk about levels of measurement real quick. So we just jump over here. Levels of measurement, there's basically 3 types of levels of measurement. Nominal, it's Latin for name only. So nominal is just the name. Intent to leave, yes, no. What is your sex, male or female? What is your race? Okay, you could have more than 2 levels, okay, and so forth. So nominal is just the names of things, okay? There's no order at all. Moving on to order. Ordinal is ordered. So let me just go over here to manage for a second. So ordinal data have the levels ordered, as in age ranges, okay? So there's a particular order to that. There may be lots of other, first, second, third place, and so forth. But so ordinal is ordered. And honestly, it doesn't happen that much either that you actually have ordered data. I mean, this is an example of it, but typically that's not the case, okay? And then you have scale data, basically ratio or interval level data, we consider to be scale data. And basically, it's a number. It's a number, could have a decimal place in it, but it's just a number. So most of what we do is dealing with nominal variables and scale variables. Okay. So back to our trig. So we can look at group differences. So let's just look at group differences and differences over time. They're kind of similar. So group differences is, hey, I have one dependent variable, right? So I can ask the question, are there differences in satisfaction by gender? Okay, reasonable question. Notice my language. Differences in our outcome variable, job satisfaction by gender, okay, male, female. You could have one dependent variable. You can have covariates, which are just variables you want to control for. And then number of levels, okay, in that in that independent variable. So if I have one independent variable, is it just male, female, or is it, race, white, black, other, and so forth. Basically, when you're looking at group differences, we are basically in t-test and ANOVA land, okay? And I'll show you when we actually get to do things. Ditto for the differences over time. Again, we're kind of in t-tests, ANOVAs, MANOVA land, all right? So those are the tests that deal with differences. Okay. The next big bucket of research questions and analyses that answer or examine those research questions are prediction types of questions. There's lots of different words for prediction, Does, gender, or sex predict job satisfaction? Predict. Does sex account for variability in the job satisfaction? So dependent variables are called criterion level variables, okay. So predict IVs, independent variables are called predictive variables. So some of the language changes, don't get so hung up on it, but just know that if you're looking to see if this variable essentially predicts some other variable, okay, you're in regression land, and there's several different types of regression. Linear regression with just one scale outcome variable or dependent variable. Binary logistic, all about the outcome variable. It's just a binary, dichotomous, nominal. Multinomial, so many layers of nominal level variables. Ordinal, ordered level outcome variable. So keep in your brain that group differences, any kind of differences, is kind of t-test, ANOVAs, MANOVAs, but for the majority, t-test and ANOVAs. Prediction, we're basically dealing with typically binary, logistic, or linear regression. Okay. And then we have relationships. That's the other large bucket. So the relationship bucket is really, we're kind of in correlation, okay, and chi-square land. All right, so the difference between correlations and chi-squares, so chi-squares are using nominal level variables, okay, male, female, job satisfaction, yes, no, or something of that sort. Nominal level. They could have many levels, like age groups and so forth, but they're nominal level variables. Most of the other kinds of relationship variables are either ordinal or scale. Most of the time they're scale. Like what's the relationship between job satisfaction and emotional exhaustion? We expect kind of a negative relationship. All right, so and those are typically answered with Pearson correlations, which is do I have my Pearson correlation in front of me? Correlation, descriptive, blah blah blah. I don't see my Pearson, but it's probably, well, it needs to be in there. So Pearson correlation is two scale variables. Okay, and what's the relationship between two scale variables? So this is some of what kind of sets the groundwork, because once we get into the analyses, okay, we're going to need to know, well, which analysis we're going to pick. I'll say that the tool is helpful in that I'm going to pick on that Pearson correlation, because when you get to it, it's going to say it tests the relationship between two or more scale variables. Okay, when you select the chi-square, okay, it compares the frequencies, okay, to two nominal level variables. So it's going to help you out when you think you've selected the right test. When you go to run that darn test, okay, guess what? You're going to need that scale variable there, okay? All right, so it's going to streamline some of that process. Okay, we figured out what analysis. Terrific. Now let's get data in. Mission critical. Okay. So how are we going to get data in here? Basically, we're going to get data in one of two ways. Okay. One way is under projects, I'm going to go to upload data. When I'm in upload data, I'm going to typically upload an Excel file. Okay. If you have Qualtrics or SurveyMonkey or Question Pro, all these things are exportable into an Excel file. You can upload that Excel file. Caveat is that when you upload those data sets I just mentioned, the data needs to look like this. So typically with those other platforms, they have several rows of headers, like what is your sex? And then they'll have the short name, sex. And then they'll have the definition, the levels, 1 is male, 2 is female, 3 is, non-binary or whatever, okay? So you can have several levels. In our tool, in Intellectus, you're going to need simply the name of the variable, keep it short, because it's going to help when you make those tables, and then the data underneath it. If it's nominal or ordinal, just put the actual label in there. There's no odd coding schemes going on, okay? And then if it's a scale variable, just put the number there. Okay, so that's how the data needs to look in Excel if you export it from Qualtrics, SurveyMonkey, and so forth. The other way to get data is to enter data manually. And it's just very simple. I'm going to have, job set, okay? And I'll put in, sex, okay? And then I'll say, job satisfaction from 1 to 7. Okay, and then sex, you get a male and female. Okay, so just literally put it in, or you can copy an Excel file and just paste it in there. Okay, so or I can just enter it in. So once I enter it in, I would say one other quick thing here. I would also have an ID variable. Not everybody does this. I just think it's helpful. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9. It's nice to know when you see a 77 there, okay? It's nice to know that that's participant number 9, okay? So you can go back to that to their survey and look up, okay, what their score is on job satisfaction. Was it a 7? Was it really a 1? It was really blank. What is that? So it's nice to have the ID there as well. Okay, you don't have to do much with it, but it's helpful in that cleaning process. Once you have data in, it's going to, say, hey, gosh, our job satisfaction variable is numbers. That's scale, hunky-dory. Sex is nominal. That's true, hunky-dory. ID, it's really nominal. It's just really a name, right? We're not using it as a number. All right. We're not going to be averaging those ID numbers and so forth. Okay. So it's just the ID. It's just like a name. Hey, you're participant 3 or participant 7. And then we have our data in. So what have we done? What have we done so far? So the first thing we've done is we've picked out the test. Great. We've then uploaded data or entered data in. Okay. Now we're going to go into managing data. So I'm going to select this project. So as I said earlier, typically the main function of this is going to be 2 things. Okay. Overall. One is using the variable calculator. Hey, you know what? I want to know what the average emotional exhaustion pre and post. What's the average exhaustion? Okay, emotional exhaustion. I can go to variable calculator. I can put in, name it, average emotional exhaustion. Great. I want to get a mean composite or an average between these guys here. Okay, average emotional exhaustion. This looks right. I'm adding them divided by 2. Great. Hit calculate or submit. And now I have a new variable there. That's one thing that you'll want to do. The other thing that you'll want to do is to download that managed data. So after I've created, hey, average emotional exhaustion or depersonalization or whatever, I'm going to want that data on my desktop. So to do that, I'm going to download that data. Okay. And in that downloaded data, okay, which comes down in Excel, I will have that managed data, particularly any scores that I've changed or averaged or and so forth. Okay. So let's go to the analyses now. Okay. So, and there's other, well, let me just say some other things. So you can play around with these things. You can scroll over them. They'll tell you what they are. There's calculators, videos in most of these windows to share with you, kind of a quick way of doing things. Okay, I'm going to pass over plots for the moment because a lot of the analyses have built-in plots. So that's what I'm going to do. So just to let you know that the tool is backed by the R packages. So R is a statistical packages that have been vetted. So you can do things like run descriptives, which we'll do, run correlations, run t-tests, ANOVAs. These are differences, predictions, or relationships. Anybody want to throw an answer out there? Can they type in or no?
You could type it into the chat or
Type
in the Q&A.
There you go. Okay, so anybody want to take a right? So host and panelists. So ANOVAs and t-tests and MANOVAs. Anybody? We got a lot of people here.
Teresa said differences.
Differences. Hey, okay, got it. Terrific. Good job. Yes. All right. And the correlations. What was that one? Was that differences, relationships, or prediction? Anybody? Relationships. Good job. Okay. All right. We got a smart bunch here. All right. They learn quickly. Exactly. Perfect. All right. And then we have regressions, differences, predictions, or relationships. Predictions. Okay. All right. Good job. Okay. And then we have non-parametrics, chi-square, prediction, relationships, or differences for the chi-squares. I'll give you a hint. So it's back over here. Here's our chi-square test. All right, so categorical, correct, perfect. All right, great job. All right, so, and there's lots of other tests in here, but okay. So we'll ask the research questions and then we'll run the analysis, right? So I'll ask the question, good job, Fatima. All right, so I'll ask the question, hey, you know what is the means, frequency, percents of sex, race, and emotional exhaustion pre and post? Okay. By the way, you'll notice these icons, scale is like a ruler, okay, so that's a number. This looks like a Venn diagram of some sort, but is nominal. And then this is ordinal. So this tells you that, hey, guess what? In this descriptives, any one of those 3 levels of measurement are hunky-dory, okay? So, all right, so I just put in a few of them, hit confirm. For all of these tests, simple. Select the test, put it into variables, hit calculate. Doesn't get any simpler. So what we have here, this is an APA 7 table. I presume most people, I was surprised to know that most people, a lot of people around the world also use APA. Crazy, but true. Obviously for English speaking journals, but a lot of people use APA as the format. So this is an APA 7 table. We can see there's more females than males here. And then we have the artificial intelligent-like auto drafting feature, which starts to draft up what's inside that table. Okay. For the scale variables, we have an APA table, helpful scrollovers to remind you of what these things are. Again, everyone had an answer for both of these. Okay, so that's the check, right? Oh, the range is 1 to 9. Okay, terrific. It's not 1 to 109. All right. All right, so let's just do some other tests. So let's just run some correlations. So I'm going to run a Pearson correlation between 2 scale variables. I put in, it asked me to add variables. We're going to add variables. And then hit calculate. So what the tool does for all of these different tests is that it preloads the assumptions of the analysis, okay, with the appropriate plots. APA table, we can see we found one significant result here, emotional exhaustion, pre and depersonalization. Okay, so, and then the results are in plain English. So a positive correlation was observed between emotional exhaustion and depersonalization. Yep. Correlation of 0.99, indicating a large effect size. Okay, great. Effect size just kind of speaks to the importance of it. And then for these, we also have the interpretation. Okay, you have a positive correlation between these 2 things here. All right, what does that mean? Well, this suggests that as emotional exhaustion increases, depersonalization increases. And then no other correlations were significant. Correlation. Let's do a t-test. Let's look at an independent t-test. This answers the question, are there differences in a scale variable by 2 categories? Great. Are there differences in, let's just say, job satisfaction by a nominal variable, which is dichotomous sex? Selected the test to answer the question, are there differences in job satisfaction by sex? I put the variables in and then I hit calculate. So as with the correlation, assumptions are built in. Guess what? One assumption is normality. Okay. And it actually runs normality tests and then make sure it's accurately interpreted. Okay. There's also another assumption, homogeneity of variance. By the way, that normality is do the scores look like a bell curve, basically. homogeneity variance basically means is this similar variance. That is basically standard deviations. These things do not look that similar, but we'll find out. You have to run the tests. Well, they're already built in, so you just have to read the test. So it ran a Levine's test 0.01. Okay, that typically means it's significant if it's less than 0.05, and the accurate interpretation. So for the t-test, we've looked at two assumptions. The results of the t-test were significant. What's going on? Females have much higher job satisfaction than males. Okay. And we also have the interpretation. Okay. But we can see females have higher scores than males. APA table, scroll over with effect size and appropriate plot. By the way, what happens when we're doing a test and there's a violation of an assumption? How can we measure the code? I'll get with you, Fatima. So when assumptions are violated, what that means is, hey, I may not be able to trust that result. Okay. All right. So one way to remedy that, okay, is to use what they call a non-parametric test. That is a test that does a similar thing. In this case, look for differences in job satisfaction by levels of sex, but does not have the assumptions. So that test was automatically enabled. You can see there were significant differences. Okay, great. Here, the test, the Mann-Whitney, uses a mean rank. And again, we can see the mean rank. The mean rank of females is much higher than the mean rank of males. There's the plot. There's the mean ranks. And there's the interpretation in English. Okay. Go back to Fatima's question. How do we measure the co-relationship? When you mean co-relationship, are you referring to correlation? Typically, that language goes together like that. So, and this tool can really handle most things. So a correlation is it's got co-relationship in there. Okay. So let's run a couple of other things here. Let's just run a regression since we talked about it earlier. Select the regression. Test if one or more scale, ordinal or nominal variables predict scale level DV. Hunky-dory. I want to see if things predict job satisfaction. Let's use some other predictors, sex, race. Let's not go too crazy here, but all right. I guess I am going too crazy here. All right. So let's see if these things, predictors, predict job satisfaction. So I'm going to jump to the assumptions. As assumptions, one is of normality. The scroll over can help you determine whether that was a normal or not. Homoscedasticity with scroll over. Multicollinearity is basically, are these predictive variables highly correlated with one another? And you can see that some of these variables are highly correlated with one another. If it's over 5 or 10, guess what? Houston, we may have a problem here. So there's different remedies for that, but just to know to test that and to be aware of that. Outlier analysis. You have to be careful with this. You don't want to just automatically delete outliers for a few reasons. One is that might be a real score, okay? And you may not want to delete a person that is real, has a real score of 14. The other thing is sometimes if you delete that observation, I'm sorry, this is participant 14. If you delete that participant, it's like whack-a-mole where another one will pop up over it. So there's strategies that need to be handled when you're looking at that. But just know that when you go to write your methodology section, you got to address some of the assumptions and how you would deal with violations of the assumptions. And when you're in the actual test, you want to be able to handle that well, both in the results and in the discussion chapter. So just to know that that should be happening. Okay, and then here are the results. Were statistically significant, great. Here's our APA table. And I guess the only thing I want to really highlight is the significant one. Okay, well, there's two of them, sex and then emotional exhaustion. So you can see emotional exhaustion predicted job satisfaction. And then here's the interpretation. When we increase emotional exhaustion by 1 unit, we will increase job satisfaction. Excuse me, when we increase emotional exhaustion post, we will increase job satisfaction by 2.92 units. Okay, so what have we done here? So let's just take a step back. So what we've done is, well, let me just finish this tennis swing here. So the final part is the downloading of the data or generating this document. So it's simply a click. Not tough. And here we go. Here we go. So here are the tests that were run. Descriptives are correlation, t-tests, Mann-Whitney, because the assumption was violated, linear regression, and for all of the in-text citations, we also provide APA style references to put in your reference section. Okay. So now I'll do the summary. Okay, so first thing we did was that we used the we used the decision tree to figure out what tests we were doing. And typically they're bucketed into differences, predictions, or relationships. We then uploaded data via like an Excel file, or we entered in data. We then managed data, which is typically that variable calculator, and then download your managed data. We then did a bunch of analyses, descriptives, correlations, t-test, Mann-Whitney, and linear regression. Great. By the way, you can move these things around and say, well, I wanted to put that up there, and it will change all the table numbers and so forth. And then we simply downloaded the document into an editable Word document. Okay. So that is how we can help simply conduct results chapters. Okay, so very, very simple. So our whole team is very versed in Intellectus, but can help you with things like making sure that your research question is phrased in statistical language, that is for your introduction or concept paper or proposal. We can make sure that your data analysis plan accurately reflects the phraseology of the question and the levels of measurement that you're going to be looking at the variables. And we can also help you with the results chapter, or you can do it by yourself. You know, by emailing or texting us or calling us. And then maybe Melissa or Sierra will put our email address in the chat and our phone number in the chat. And then schedule a time to speak, even better, hunky-dory. If you get stuck, but if you're not stuck, use it. It's just a great tool. And let me just open up for questions. So I've been talking for 40 minutes, and let's see what everyone has to, what's on your mind. Can we send your research proposal, research questions for approval? Of course. So yeah, so yep, you can just click on the link. You know, you can attach documents, and then we can look at that. So do we report glasses delta for effect size? Honestly, I've never heard of glasses delta. So you may be able to convert it from Cohen. So I'm not quite sure. I would just Google that. There might be a translation from Cohen to glasses. I think it's a glasses V. Is that right? No, oh, glasses delta. Duh. Yeah. What analysis, April, is that, by the way? That you want that effect size for group differences. So let's just see. We do have a raw output view. And I don't think if we looked at, well, you said it was for what now? For differences. So if we look at independent samples t-test, we can probably get that in there into that raw output. So I'll just put that out there to you. And Melissa, if we could just have a Marlon put glasses V in appropriate glasses delta in the raw output, we'll get that handled. That should be easy. How do we gain access? Melissa will send you a link of how to buy for 59 bucks. It does go up. I should mention, you know, typically the group consulting is $125. Hand holding, you get a human being along with you. A one-on-one is typically $2,500. So there's a wide range of that. I would say start, see if you could do it for yourself, 59. Get the group consulting, still low cost, 125. Worst case, hey, I need hand holding, I'm doing sophisticated analyses or whatever, you know, 2,500 buck range. Okay. Can we have a free trial of the software? I'll let Melissa answer that question. How should you create an account? So Melissa's sharing how you can create an account. The platform could do so much. Thank you. You are welcome, April. And you know what? Here's what I would ask all of you. Tell your colleagues, tell your profs, okay? Even though we're out here for almost a decade, people don't know that it's out there. Also, correlations. Does your platform have heat maps of R values? Interesting. No, we don't have that yet. Can we recode our variables and intellect this? Absolutely. That's under data management, and you'll see several recoding options. Great tool. Thank you, Shelley. So relieved to know this. Share it with others. That's all I can tell you. Share it with others. They don't know that it's there. There's also courses that you can get. If the school adopts it, typically the courses are really cheap, but these are still kind of cheap. But if you want to get beefed up on a particular statistical method, know that they're there as well. And that's under courses. There's also videos. You're welcome. You're welcome. Welcome. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Someone in the Q&A asked to go over ANOVA briefly. Sure. So let's just go ahead. So quickly, go to the analyses. We're under ANOVAs. Click on ANOVA. I'll select my outcome variable, say job satisfaction. I'll select variable, say race. Got a few levels. Simple. Select the ANOVA, put in my dependent variable and my independent variable. Go to my my interpreted output view, and you can see from my ANOVA assumptions, the results, plain English, APA tables for your ANOVA table, APA for the means and standard deviations. No post hocs, because when that's not significant, post hocs are typically not done. This also is really helpful. Thanks for all the research. How do we, here we go to start. How do we go to start? But so just click on a few things. So you can call us, put a phone number in there. You can email us, which is Sierra at statisticsolutions.com. Sierra, maybe put in your email address, put in our phone number, and then there's the link, and then maybe put the link in again for the put the link in again for the sign up for a free consultation. All right, other questions? Give people a moment to think. Final questions. Going once. Going twice. Okay. All right. Well, listen, I thank you all for taking your time. Thanks for your interest in learning about how to do research, write research questions, articulate data analysis plans, and conduct analyses. So I hope to see everybody on my calendar, or just go and get it, tell other people. Please tell us in details about all steps of research and others in another session. Thank you. Yeah, there's some fish to fry there. That's true. Thank you for that suggestion. Okay, I think with that, I will say have a great rest of the week, and thanks again. Yeah, bye everybody.